there, this is Debbie Heiser with another episode of Faith-Infused Leadership, and I am really privileged today to have Ryan Sawyer with us, a soon-to-be published author, and he has a phenomenal story to tell. And so we're just going to dig in, Ryan, and welcome, and we're happy to have you.
No, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I want to just start out and ask you, tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to writing a book.
Yeah, so I was I like to call it my past life. In my past life, I was a collegiate football coach. My last coaching stay was at Eastern Washington University. I was there from 2008 to 2015. I walked away in 2015, and what led to that experience of walking away was, looking back at coaching. I tell people all the time, the greatest singles job in the world. When you love football and that's all you've ever done, it's all you've ever known, it's all you've ever wanted to do. You didn't know anything else about life than just winning and losing football games. And, we obviously 2010 had a ton of success, national champions. Heidi and I got married just right after the national championship game, the trophies at the wedding, it's just like the world is perfect, right? Newlyweds, everything looks great. Career looks real strong. Like I'm moving forward, I'm living my dream. And then shortly after that, we had back-to-back 17 months apart, 2 babies, a boy and a girl. And very quickly, I realized that I wanted to be home, that no longer was the 80 to 100-hour weeks cool. It wasn't cool anymore. And so that experience of realizing, hey, this is no longer what I want to do with my life, it brought up some underlining anxiety and depression that had been living within me, and I knew was there, but I got so good at hiding it and suppressing it my whole life that I got used to it. It was my experience, right? Everything from early age, when I was 12 or 13 years old, I can remember severe spells of depression and anxiety when I was 16, 17 years old, and high school, and all the way through my 20s. Barely sleeping. Really bad sleeping disorder. And it was actually when I met my wife that I started to sleep. Interesting story, but completely going off a rabbit hole. So when I realized that I wanted something different, it took me 3 years to build up the courage to walk away from my dream job. My biggest fear was, what if I leave college coaching and I can't find happiness? What if this isn't the problem? What if this doesn't relieve anything? Anyway, long story short, we ended up working through that to the point where in 2015, I finally just said, hey, listen, this is my last year. I'm walking away and I have to go figure this out, because I started to see things within my own nucleus of my family that my depression was really affecting the energy of the home. It was affecting my marriage. And that continued to worsen when I walked away. Like it was like the more exposure I had, the more I let things out, the more it became to the surface, the more it just was manifesting this negative vibration in my home. And so Heidi and I got to a place where we were at the end of our ropes with each other, with our marriage. And it was legitimately a conversation in the kitchen where it's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to move out tomorrow, because that's where we are. Yeah. And in that moment, I got hit with, and every time I tell this story, I get emotional, so I'm not going to do it this time.
That's okay.
I got hit with what I like to call a download, like a moment of inspiration. And it was like this voice speaking to me saying, you need to do the work. And each of you need to do the work. And so I just started to tell her like what I was getting hit with, what this message was, right? And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, we each need to grow individually. Everything to this point, we're changing about our environment, about our lives. We sold our newly constructed home and moved to the valley because we thought we had to get out of Cheney. That was the problem. And we went through a physical transformation. I lost 70 pounds and she got in incredible shape. And, that didn't change anything. And she changed her profession. I left my coaching career, and the energy in our home just continued to worsen. My depression and anxiety continued to worsen. And so the message was that we both need to stop changing anything about each other or our environment. We need to go inside, we need to go internal, and we need to work on ourselves. We need to emotionally heal. And we need to take a look at this unconscious pattern and these loops and these thoughts that were driving our behaviors, right? And so we agreed that we would spend 6 months as roommates. in our own home.
Yeah.
And we would just give each other space to grow, and we would work on ourselves. And within a few months, everything shifted, and we fell back in love, and we started laughing again, and we started, we started being just back to where we were before, in the sense of like just enjoying each other's company, and opportunities started showing up, and and so all these things started to shift in our lives, and everything from a business standpoint to relationship to our personal just experience of life. And through that, we recognized we were onto something. We were onto something that we wanted to share with people, and so I got to a point where, I felt my experience of depression and anxiety went from me running away from this darkness, this cloud over my head, like always feeling like I was trying to run away from it, to chasing this other experience of like hope and light and joy and peace.
Yeah.
Right? And so this massive like threshold happened. And as I did that, all these things started to recognize like how I was living, like what was it that got me over this place? And that's kind of where the book started to take shape. I started to just journal. I mean, constantly. I wrote down my journey every single morning. I got up and I just brain dumped until there was nothing left inside, and I'd go about my day. And so I organized those notes, and I created these 8 principles of transformation, and I recognized this cycle that I go through every time that I kind of change something in my life. And so I thought, what, this is maybe could be beneficial. If I could go back and talk to myself 8 or 10 years ago, right? What would I tell him? And that person never picked up a book. I was 35 years old. I'd never read a book in my life. And so the idea of me writing a book is still something I don't believe I actually did, but we'll see when it comes out. It actually happened.
Yeah, we'll see. It's coming.
Right? And so I wanted to write something that was super approachable, super easy to read, and something that we could potentially see some actionable steps with, right? And so, again, I wrote that to myself. I wrote that book to myself basically at 35, and I'm 43 this, in a couple of days here. And on my birthday is the 27th. And that's the day that the book comes out. So yeah, that's kind of a long story short, as short as I could make it anyway.
Yeah, no, that was really interesting. I want to back up because I heard 2 or 3 really kind of what I feel are pretty critical points that I think I'm hearing you say too that are critical. And one is that it's really interesting to me how we start at a very early age putting masks on. Right? And we hide behind these masks that then ultimately eat us up inside. That manifests itself in numerous different ways, whether it's addiction, whatever, in this case, depression and anxiety, and how that starts so young with people. Almost everyone I know that has struggled, there's usually some tie back to early on, and whether that's achievement or whatever the case. So I heard you kind of talk about that. And then also, I live by this rule that I'm 100% responsible for myself, and I'm 100% responsible to you, which the 2 and the 4 are really big, right? Meaning that this codependency that we tend to live in, this culture that really resonates with codependency, and how we have to take care of ourselves and be who we are and be happy with who we are as people before we can be happy in anything. Right? Like chasing externally just doesn't work, is what I was hearing you say. And to me, that seems to be a critical theme that I hear and have read through some of the information that you have in your book. That seems to be that theme.
Yeah, that's one of the principles, is to focus on you first.
Yep, I think that's your first principle, isn't it? No, that's the second one.
That's the second principle, yeah. So the first one is awareness. We have to recognize we want something to be different first. There's something on there that's not the way we would desire it to be. And so, second, focusing on you first, and just really that idea of taking 100% responsibility. That blame has an expiration date, right? And that we have to, no matter whether it's our fault, it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to heal and to move past and to grow, if we want to experience all there is to experience in life and have the relationships that we want. Like with the masks, we tend to accumulate masks on top of each other that develop into what we call preferences. Like I prefer the current moment or relationship or somebody else to show up different than they are. right? I want everything to be my circumstances, my financial, my business, my this. I want all these things to be different than they are. And it's the preferences that keep us from actually experiencing the present moment. And so if we can let go of those preferences, then we can find ourselves being more present with what is in that place. Then we can create a different version of ourselves. We can create a different experience. We can actually see it for what it is. But it's hard to see it for what it is when we have those veils, those layers in between us and the moment, you know?
Yeah. So tell me, Ryan, are there any tips or things that you would say to the listeners when it comes to surrender? Because when we let go of those masks, we have to let them go and then surrender it, right? And I know number 7 is you're letting go and surrendering of your 8 principles of transformation. So is there any tip or advice that you would give to people?
You know, everybody, first of all, I'd say everybody's experience is completely different. I can give you experience of it. And I even speak to that in the book a lot, is saying, listen, I'm sharing my journey, I'm sharing my experience and how I connected the dots, but each and every individual needs to walk the path to figure out what that means to them. Like the word surrender, when I first heard that, I'm a defensive line coach, right? And the idea of surrender means failure and then losing, it was like never, right? And until I started to understand the principle behind letting go. And you know, one of my major influences is Michael Singer. If you're familiar with his work, Untethered Soul, the Surrender Experiment, you know, and I really dove much deeper into what that really meant. And it's like everything else in life. My tip is to understand that another principle, that life is a practice. Okay, so if I have to first recognize that like there is this preference between me and how I want the world to show up, right? And so I have to actually practice letting go of the smallest preferences. It might even be how you like your coffee. Like for me, I used to be real particular about my mornings being quiet. I want them quiet. And if they weren't quiet, right? And so that's just one of those things that keeps me from connecting with my loved ones. So my son woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I prefer for him to sleep till 6. So I have my morning, right? But why not just let go of that preference and connect with him? Like that's a small example. And when I really started to develop this practice, it was when we were in Hawaii as a family. It was my whole family, both of my brothers, their families, and my parents, all in one house, right? There's 13 of us. And I had this idea that I was going to get to read a book and sit by the pool, and it was vacation, and I hadn't been somewhere tropical in years, and I thought, oh, I really deserve this. And so it's the first day, I'm sitting by the pool, and I love getting up early. I wake up at like crazy early hours, and so it's still pretty early. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm thinking, okay, now I'm going to crack my book open. I've done my yoga, I've done my meditation. Like, what a wonderful morning. I'm going to get an hour to read my book. And chaos breaks out, right? The kids are jumping in the pool, and I'm just instantly irritated. And I think to myself, this is how the whole week's going to go if you don't let go. Right? Yeah. The whole week's going to be like, oh, I wish this was different. And so I thought, you know what? This will be a good chance to do an experiment. Like I'm going to let go of my moment by moment preferences. However, if I find myself wanting the current moment to be different than it really is, then I'm just going to let go and do whatever it's being asked of me. So a great example is my kids are like, Daddy, want to hop in the pool? Will you hop in the pool with me or whatever? Like almost every time I'm like, oh. No, I mean, I was just in there 5 minutes ago. I just got dry. I'm like, no, I don't want to get in the pool, you know? And so it's 6:15 in the morning. My dad or my son goes, Dad, hop in the pool. And I'm like, okay. All right. And so the whole week, I just constantly let go and constantly let go. And by the end of the week, it became easier and easier. And I recognized like I am connecting with my children and my wife in a way I never have before. Because I'm completely letting go of how I think the moment should be unfolding. And I'm just seeing them folding for the first time. Like I'm seeing them in this moment, who they are right here, right now, because we are all changing so much.
Yeah.
By letting go, I'm able to truly see you for who you are in this moment, not who you were yesterday or 5 minutes ago even, right? And so the fun part of the story, it's the end of I didn't tell anybody I was doing this. And I actually still practice this probably a couple times a month.
Yeah, I was going to say what I hear you saying too is it's a discipline.
It's a discipline. That's right.
Practice.
So at the end of the week, my wife, we're all sitting on the beach having dinner, and she looks over at me. She goes, "Ryan, I gotta tell you," she goes, "you look like someone who has no preferences. You look so peaceful." And I just kind of smiled at her. I'm like, "Well, I gotta tell you a quick story." So I told her, that's exactly what I've been doing all week. And so it's fun because, like, even a few weeks ago, I had a Sunday. I woke up and I kind of felt this little irritability. This kind of like I didn't want to do this. I didn't want, and so I was like, "Oh well, time to practice." And so I set out to do that all day long. And it's about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. My son's like, "Dad, are you doing that whole let go your preferences thing again today?" Because he's like, whatever you say, whatever I ask, you're saying yes. He's like, "You want to play chess?" I'm like, "Sure." "You want to go for a walk?" "Yeah." And so it's a wonderful practice. And then, so there's two pieces of this puzzle. There's our preferences, and then I'm going to go a little bit longer. There's our letting go of our story. And surrendering our story. And this is where it gets really hard. This is where our ego, our even, our chemical makeup of what makes us humans and how we experience the world and how all those things are intertangled, wants us to stay in a known experience, right? And not just comfort, like, "Oh, I'm afraid of public speaking" or something like that, but like even just what I'm experiencing. For me, I experienced over 20 years of insane guilt. Everything made me feel guilty. Every conversation made me feel guilty. Even if I thought like the conversation went well, I would find something to feel guilty about.
Yeah.
My body was addicted to guilt, right? And so I had to go deep into my own psyche, into my emotional well-being, and say, what is it that I'm feeling guilty about? Like, what is really the root cause of all of this? And let go and rewrite that story.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to first recognize the story that's being run unconsciously in our subconscious mind that is manifesting what it is that's showing up in the world.
Yeah, principle number 1 again, right? Awareness, right?
So we have to let go of that, surrender it, and then be prepared to replace it with what we do want, right? Because if we don't replace it with something, then it's just going to find a way to manifest itself in a different manner or show up in a different way. So it's really a healing process. Heidi and I have done a lot of shadow work, like really deep internal shadow work, where we go back into our childhood and to find the root cause of something, to say, okay, here it is, where I made this agreement that I was stupid. In the 4th grade, I was 10 years old, and the rest of my life, I acted as if I was stupid. Well, it was 38 years old before I realized I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
Like I have all the mental faculties to achieve whatever goals I want. Like, so let's let go of this story that's complete BS, and let's rewrite the narrative, and let's see how we would have showed up our whole lives if we had a different story. And then now from this place, this current moment, what does that mean for us going forward? Because I'm not telling that story anymore.
And Ryan, that's so powerful, because I think back to even the conversation we were just having about masks and how they start when you're young. And I think so many times too, we don't realize the impact we have on younger people and the words that we say, and it starts to build because something, and you don't have to share it here, but something happened, right? For you to start thinking you were stupid at that moment. There was something that occurred that created that. And so I think about all of this and your cycle of transformation too. And so let me ask you, as you and Heidi both have done this work, how's that impacted your children?
It's huge. It was one of my final straws for me. And it was, my son was 2 years old, and there was, whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know, but I felt like there was moments of what looked like depression in a 2-year-old. Like there was these moments where he just would go from being content and happy as a 2-year-old to like just moping and depressed. And he had this massive separation anxiety. I'd walk out of a room, he'd lose his mind. And so I noticed all these little trends. So that was one of my initial, like, I have to figure this out. I can't be walking around this house anymore in this vibration, affecting him in this way. Yeah. And then beyond our own healing, when we heal ourselves, we don't only, we heal generations in the past, we heal generations forward. So we aren't passing on our baggage. And so the more, even in this next moment, that I do something to heal. That's what this book is about. It's partly my own healing. I'm putting this out there. I'm letting it go fully by it being exposed fully, right? And therefore, then I don't have to pass that on to my kids. And beyond that, what we recognize is when we are unconscious and we react in a way that's unconscious and we snap at our children, maybe because they're being loud and obnoxious in a moment. I'm on the phone. Hey, stop! What? Like we all do. We're all human beings, and so we recognize, hey, wait a minute. We may have just created a bit of a shadow there, right? Because we as human beings we're meaning-making machines, right? There's a story that we are telling ourselves, and that's a story that we're living out. And so I'm always aware of like, hey, what would my little 6-year-old daughter make that mean about herself when something happens and we're not even being bad parents. We're just saying, honey, can you be quiet for a minute?
Yeah.
Colton's talking, and she gets her feelings hurt and walks upstairs. Now, there's a fine line. I'm teaching her respect to listen to others, but at the same time, I want to make sure that she didn't take that to mean that she's bad. Right. And so we do a lot of recognizing, a shadow was just created or was reinforced there. That's a shadow that she has. Then let's go right now and let's go heal it. We have a chance to redo the scenario, just like in our shadow work, what's called the Q process. We do basically where we're able to show up as the best versions of ourselves and everybody involved. So like, for example, a story like where maybe my father created a shadow in me, like I get to rewrite the story where he's showing up as the best version of himself. I'm showing up as the best version of myself. And so we get to do that with our own children.
Yeah.
So we get to go back, relive that moment and say, okay, so this is what happened and this is how I respond. Now, from the best version of myself. And now what do you make that mean, sweetie? And then she's telling me, well, it means I'm safe and I'm okay. Like that's what I want you to know. Like that's the truth of you, right? That you're safe, that you're loved, that you're limitless, right? And so, that's where it impacts our children, not only from our own healing and now how we're able to show up for the world vibrationally and everything else, but also in the moment when we recognize something triggering for them, when they get triggered, we know that comes from a place that is not the truth of them.
Yeah.
Right. And so then we're able to go in and try to figure out very gently, what's that story that you're telling yourself? And how can we rewrite that narrative right now at 6 years old?
Yeah, that's powerful.
So they have less work to do when they're 35. There's still going to be work because there's no way to get out of this world without
absolutely
creating some shadows. So we also know, like, hey, we got to leave some work for her to do later,
Yeah, but you can minimize it. That's what
we try to minimize it as much as possible.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Ryan, we're kind of coming towards the end here. So let me ask you, if somebody, I know you and Heidi both are working and doing coaching with people, both individually and as couples. And if someone has an interest in reaching out to you or working with you or Heidi or together, what would be the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. We have been working endlessly to develop a membership model where we're able to support individuals and couples to do the own individual work, right? To do the internal work. Yeah. And we recognize the importance of each of us being on our own paths, giving each other space to grow, and then allowing for us to show up as our best versions of ourselves in this moment by doing that work. And so in September, we are launching our coaching membership called Be Aligned. And that is going to be where we're able to have all kinds of stuff in there, from breath work and meditation and yoga, all the principles that come out of my book. And then we will have monthly coaching calls and questions and answers. And it'll be a fully integrated approach, physical, mental, and emotional. And we'll be able to support people in their own journeys and let them be at their pace. And so it's going to be super affordable for any household. And so people really have to say, like, I can't say no to this. Like, I'm going to go check this thing out. And we're going to do 30 days free in September. And so just go to ihpcoaching.com. ihpcoaching.com is our website, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, IHP Coaching. And those things kind of just check out what we're doing, what we're about. We are not saying that we have the answers at all to relationship or to couples. Like, we're not couple therapists. We're just two people that are committed to being in the trenches, growing, and want to create a community of people who also see the value in doing their own individual work and support them in that journey.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is, Ryan, is we all have our own teachers within, but it's so important for other people to share their experiences so that people don't feel alone, which I know is a big theme for you. So hats off to both of you for doing this. And I'm excited to see the book drop here in a couple of days. Yeah, and for those of you that are interested, go out to Amazon.com And the book is called Choice Point: Break the Cycle of Self-Sabotage, Accelerate Your Growth, and Realize Your True Potential. And Ryan, just thank you so much for spending this time here today. And yeah, and good luck to you. I look forward to seeing this on the bestseller list.
Well, that would be wonderful. It's just, we're more just excited about it potentially getting into one hand that needs to
Absolutely.
hear that message, right? So
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Debbie. This has been a blast, and I really appreciate you having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you later. This is another episode of Faith-Infused Leadership. Everybody have a great day.